I started curating a news spectrum, and I'm going to use these terms, but they mean different things to different people, and so I'm using them loosely. So essentially, I had curated a news spectrum that went from the progressive left to the conservative right and everything in between. And there would be times I'd be listening through it, and I'm thinking that is just hysteria, or that can't be right, and it just drives you nuts. But I'm like, I have to get this information because to some level, because if the right is doing something wrong, the left will definitely jump on it and tell me. And if the left is doing something wrong, the right will definitely jump on and tell me. And then somewhere in the middle, I might be able to find the truth.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the basis of just, I started seeing patterns and reoccurring themes of what these guys would do over and over again and what these guys would do over and over again. And I'm like, there has to be a way to be able to calmly decipher this and not only just understand it for yourself, but then to have that conversation with others.
This is the Veritable Veteran Podcast, bringing truth and exposure to the struggles veterans and their families face post-military. Depression, anger, PTSD, suicide. Who am I? What do I do now?
Hey guys, welcome back to the Veritable Veteran Podcast. Today we have David X. Cook, not David Cook. It's David X. Cook. Very specific because there apparently are a lot of David Cooks out there, and we're trying to make sure you guys can find the right one later on after the interview. David is the author of the Sane Read series. He's a U.S. Air Force veteran of 20 years. He was a security forces guy. And David, I'm glad to have you on the show. You sent me your book and I was able to read it. And I got a lot of good insight from it. I haven't read the whole thing, full transparency. I've read a bunch of it. But I want to hear just we'll get to the book, but I'd love to hear just what led you into the military and just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, thank you, just right off the jump, again, thank you for just allowing me to come on here and talk to you and talk to your audience. Thank you for really all the things that you do for the vet community. As you mentioned, I, a 20-year Air Force veteran, I really got done with high school and thought, I don't really know what to do with myself. And so a buddy of mine, was like, hey, did you know you could just join the military? I'm like, oh, I mean, I don't have to go fight for a job or anything. That sounds great. So as silly as that might sound, I went down to the recruiter office.
Just do it. Just send it.
Yeah. And so I tried community college a little bit. I thought, well, that's probably, that's a headache. But no, realistically, buddy of mine kind of planted the seed in my head. I went down to the recruiter's office, kind of a longer story short, ended up joining the Air Force. And said, hey, what kind of job do you want after taking the ASVAB? And it seemed to be kind of wide open at the time. And so I'd asked for one thing and they're like, that's not available. And I was like, well, I mean, I'd love to help people. I grew up in an area where there was two weathers, basically good and better. And so I thought I would just love to just work outside. I don't want to be in an office. And so I want to help people. And so kind of landed on the military, police, law enforcement, security forces kind of genre. And this is back in 2000. And so I hopped into that, realized that the military is hard, moved halfway across the continent, met my wife, had my son in our first duty station. And so really traveled kind of all over the United States. For about half my career, kind of in various instances where I was in Nebraska, down in Alabama, over in California, and then kind of TDYs all over the place, and then deployed a couple times. Then I spent another half of my career overseas, and kind of just going to condense it, I guess, to kind of just sort of put it in narration or put it just easy digestible. Spent half my time overseas at one point I was in an international affairs mission. So I was the one deep American in kind of on a NATO base, kind of teaching them or being the exchange senior NCO for that process. Came back, ended up in Wyoming doing nuclear security, and ultimately retired out of the Air Force at 20. Those that are familiar with the retirement side of it, there was not a day sooner I could have retired, but essentially the reasoning for that was just they were getting ready to move us again. My son was kind of processing through middle school and high school, and they were going to make us move again. And we thought, okay, well, maybe this is kind of the Lord calling us to kind of finish our military career and retire where we are here now in Wyoming. And so really just as the whole is I had done security forces initially. I'd cross-trained over into combat arms or kind of a weapons specialist. They had asked me to do system development and maintenance at a portion. Eventually, for the international affairs mission, I needed to go over to the Defense Language Institute out in California, and so I had to learn a language. So I spent a year out there doing that, and then I was embedded with the Germans for several years, and that was just kind of an amazing assignment, kind of learning their culture. And then coming back to Wyoming, and what I learned was just every little spot that we moved to is we just sort of, what I like to say, we went local, and we just sort of dove into the local culture, dove into the local community. You know, what the locals like to do, we like to then embrace and jump into. And so that kind of helped us kind of just sort of see the mentalities and different nuances that everywhere that we lived, just kind of what made it special. And so when I was getting ready to retire, having spent 20 years in multiple deployments, multiple TDYs, multiple moves, kind of putting the military first, I had made the conscious and verbal determination to say, after retirement, I'm focusing on my faith, family, and community. And so I dove into supporting nonprofits locally here, kind of with their grant writing and development. I was able to support a lot of really great missions here locally. And then ultimately got finished up my master's in project management, started a couple of small businesses, and currently write contracts professionally. And also, as you mentioned, I have written then the Sane Read, a news media field guide. And kind of the beginning of your questions of my motivation of doing that was I had noticed that there was a big difference in the world from 2000 when I joined the military and 2025 when I was writing the book, is the media and social media and the hysteria that kind of seemed to envelop the world and the nation in every kind of spot has just sort of exponentially kind of expanded. And so I wanted to just sort of put those life lessons that I'd learned in kind of the detail, and I'll get into more of the writing of the book probably later, but kind of just sort of ways that I've seen that you could decipher the media a lot better to have just sort of a happy, calmer existence while still, being online or consuming the news. And so that's kind of me in a nutshell. Yeah.
No, that's something that I struggle with is the staying informed and being wanting to understand what's going on and without getting overwhelmed. And that's what I struggle with is because I really want to be informed. I like knowing what's going on. I like being in the know. And when I'm not, I get frustrated. But then when I get too deep into it and I feel like I'm starting to get overwhelmed, then I get frustrated because it's like, well, I can't do anything, and I'm just, it's like, it feels hopeless and helpless. I feel helpless. So I think there's a fine line. And I was, again, you sent me the book and I've been reading it, and it's been really very interesting to see just the tools that you put in the book and the methods that you talk about are things that I have kind of subconsciously done, but not done very well. And it's like things that I'm like, I should do this. And then part of me is like, no, but I don't want to. Like I want to hold on to my closely held, I don't even know what you would call it. It's beliefs, I guess, but it's like I don't want to look at the other side. I want to believe this is the only way, and this is how I think, and I must be right, and the book clearly talks about how you need to step back and be like, okay, what if we looked at it from somebody else's perspective, and we saw it through the way they're thinking, and it's really interesting, and it's very timely in the world that we're in right now.
Yeah, no, I certainly appreciate that, and you're absolutely right. I mean, that was kind of your thought on just you're wanting to be on the know, but it also kind of drives you crazy. And so, I mean, I had just with moving around a lot and just being everywhere and focusing on the news. I mean, I was in the news, but there was a time where the story I like to tell is there was a time where I just had to step back for a moment, and because I was busy at work, there was a lot of things going on, and then all of a sudden, my wife, she hits me up and she never watches the news generally. And she's like, "Hey, something's going on. I need you to get me a mask, or I think we need to get masks. There's something happening." And I'm like, "Okay." Well, Cheyenne does not have a whole lot of stores to go through, but and they're pretty conservative. So I went to the local store and I see where there should be some kind of protective equipment. It's not like a couple things were gone. The entire aisle was empty. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. So then I go to another store, same thing, totally empty. And I'm thinking, this is really weird now. So I found a solution, and I got home, I got on my phone, and it was February 2020. And I'm like, oh, the world is ending. Okay, that would have been great to have known. And I was paying attention. It was just, I wasn't in the right source. I wasn't paying attention enough. We're taking it serious enough, and thinking like, okay, I can't just, because as a father, my son was in middle school at the time, I think, if I got the middle school or early high school. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, I feel like I just totally let my family down. Here I am supposed to be kind of monitoring, the news, because I know she doesn't, I'm supposed to be taking care of them, making sure they're equipped and prepared. And, the world was coming to an end, and I totally messed it. And so that really kind of energized the idea of like, I need to be, again, dived back into focusing back into what was going on. And so, what
Yeah.
you're talking about is there's that comfort bias of like, I don't necessarily want to watch the opposing news that kind of goes against your beliefs or you just sort of your view of the world. And I think we're all that way. That's kind of what it looked like for a lot of the research that I was looking at. But post that experience, I started curating a news spectrum, and I'm going to use these terms, but they mean different things to different people, and so I'm using them loosely. So essentially, I had curated a news spectrum that went from the um, progressive left to the conservative right, and everything in between. And there'd be times I'd be listening through it, and I'm thinking, that is just hysteria, or that can't be right, and it just drives you nuts. But I'm like, I have to get this information because to some level, because if say, if the right is doing something wrong, the left will definitely jump on it and tell me. And if the left is doing something wrong, the right will definitely jump on and tell me. And then somewhere in the middle, I might be able to find the truth.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the basis of just, I started seeing patterns and reoccurring themes of what these guys would do over and over again and what these guys would do over and over again. And I'm like, there has to be a way to be able to calmly decipher this and not only just understand it for yourself, but then to have that conversation with others. And I think for our vet community, I got vet friends that, I mean, and again, they're security forces, most of them. And I'm thinking, like a lot of career fields in the military, you're not the easiest bunch of individuals. You don't get offended a whole lot. I mean, it's a rough group of individuals. And even still, their emotions were paper thin when it
Yeah.
came to certain topics. And I'm
Yep.
thinking, if our community is that sensitive to some of this, even when we pride ourselves generally on being a little bit more thick-skinned on a lot of things, or having maybe even like a little bit of darker humor, like we have to do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the catalyst that brought me into to to start writing everything down and getting organized and trying to help help our community as veterans, but also just sort of help our nation and help our just community discourse amongst family members and colleagues and that random guy on the internet that wants to be real like agitated about things like, maybe we could do better. I mean, I know I can always do better. So
Yep.
yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because there's the veteran community is notoriously vicious in their defense of a position that they hold. Or if you say something against an idea that they have held for a long time, they're going to come after you. And there's certain topics that I don't want to say I try to avoid. I'm very careful about what I get into because some of the stuff is just not in line with what I'm trying to do with my platform. Because I'm trying to encourage, mental health, like being mentally healthy. And I'm trying to encourage people to take charge of their own, their journey in life, that, physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, all these things that people need to actually take control of in their own lives. And so there's certain things that people are like, why don't you talk about this? And I'm like, yeah, that's just not necessarily something I need to get involved in. But when I have dipped my toe in the water of political things, I get a lot of angry comments and a lot of just hate mail, we'll say, which, I mean, I don't care. It doesn't really bother me. It's just interesting how it kind of comes up out of nowhere when I say something like the other day, I said something about how the search and rescue mission for this downed pilot, the information coming from the White House wasn't making a lot of sense. And in my video, I was just kind of like, I'm not saying that this is not true. What I'm saying is this isn't making a whole lot of sense and it's not really adding up based on my experience. And again, I even said I have a little bit of experience in a search and rescue type mission where we do trap missions, which is the tactical recovery of aircraft and personnel. So that is a side tasker. That was not our primary mission. Our primary mission were infantry Marines, right? Guys that are in CSAR, like their sole job is combat search and rescue, like pararescue jumpers, like those guys that they live, eat, sleep, and breathe it. Like that's all they do. So what I brought to the table was, this is my experience. This is why I don't think this makes sense. What do you guys think? And immediately I just got like blasted with people being like, you're stupid. Like, obviously they would do this or they would do that or they wouldn't do this. And your information is all kinds of messed up. And, and they started asking, where did you even get this information? Because this is dumb. And I was like, and I started kind of thinking to myself, I was like, where did I get that information? Because I was reading a ton of different sources and I couldn't necessarily pinpoint where I had gotten like specific things. So I made a second video and I kind of went on and I'm like, some of that information, I may have gotten my wires crossed on where I got it, whether it was an actual news article or if it was just somebody's post on a page that I read, which like some of them are reliable. Again, some of them are, some of them aren't. But again, it was just, there was a lot. And there's a guy, specifically one guy who sent me a message and he goes, your video was really stupid. And he just went off and I was kind of like, okay, that was a little harsh, but all right. Again, not the first time I've received a message like that. And generally I won't respond if it's like, they're just attacking me. Cause I'm like, probably not somebody I need to even try discussing anything with. But I responded with, no, thinking critically isn't stupid. Oh, and he accused me of pushing Iranian misinformation. And I was like, okay. So I was like, thinking critically isn't stupid, and nor is it pushing any kind of misinformation. I intended to use what the White House had said. Now, there was one thing that I said that the White House hadn't said, and I said, hey, I messed up. I shouldn't have said that. Was a mistake. I got that from somewhere else. But the information I was using was like what the White House had said, right? And I responded calmly to him, and I was like, it's not misinformation or anything else. It's me trying to understand something that just isn't making sense to me. He responded again and he said something a little bit just impolite, right? It was a little bit less aggressive, but it was still kind of rude. And I responded again. I was like, did you watch my second video where I kind of broke down what I had said and why I said it? There was no response for a while. And then he came back on later. He goes, I apologize. I didn't see your second video. Um, Once I watched it, I saw that you addressed those things that I had brought up. And he kind of apologized. And I was like, okay, well, the point being is that I've had that happen several times where someone has come
Sure.
on and viciously attacked me for a position or something that I said. And instead of just responding, because my initial reaction is like, I'm just going to be snarky and say something sarcastic and kind of be like, go suck an egg. Like, I don't care. But
In
if I'm
true
able
veteran
to,
fashion, of course.
right. Yeah. It's like, that's my initial veteran human side that's just coming out of me and being like, dude, go pound sand. I don't care. But I'm trying to foster a reaction to where I'm like, hey, hold on a second. We don't need to argue about this. Like, we're probably actually more on the same page than you realize. And then I'll try to respond in a way that's like, hey, I'm just saying what I'm feeling and I'm asking for input from you guys.
Well, and a lot of those
And
things that you covered are just like, I mean, I'd say they're right out of the book. I mean, and like you said, you do a lot of those things inherently, and you're kind of, refining that, but like, it's like I'm going to call you as a news organization, because you are bringing information out to your audience. I mean, you're not going to be infallible. Like, none of them will be infallible. And so being
yeah,
married to a like a news source or a commentary source and saying this guy's going to be accurate 100% of the time is just not realistic. But what realistic is if you make a mistake, and I talk about this in the Sane Read, is how do your news sources correct mistakes?
yeah,
And I remember
yep,
watching both the videos. Like, you came out and said, hey, this is what I'm thinking. You didn't state it as fact. So this is what I'm seeing, and this is what I'm hearing. I'm trying to interpret it. And your second video came out and was like, hey, I got to correct a little bit. I got to, course correct and adjust. And this is kind of where I was mistaken. And these are my, these are my notes from there.
yeah,
And a source that will do that, especially a source that will do that openly, is something that should be annotated in your kind of list of who do you trust and who do you don't. Because, I mean, there's plenty of sources. I mean, I remember there was things that I've heard sources, main news broadcast, say things, and 6 months later they would say the exact opposite, and there would never be a correction in the middle. And I'm thinking, I
yes,
know 100% that individual several months ago said the exact opposite. But I
yep,
mean, but you're going through like 120 different episodes of an hour a piece just to try to figure out
yes,
where they had said that.
yep.
Um,
And
and
they
so,
just try to bury it. And they just try to
yeah,
move on and pretend like it didn't happen. And then if it gets brought up, they're like, oh, I misspoke. And they
sure,
just, they put a retraction on the back page of the newspaper when they ran the story the first time. It was front page, huge picture, huge headline, and their retraction is this big on the last page,
right,
6 months later, that nobody ever reads. And it's like, oh, we misspoke, or we had incorrect information. And they give some ambiguous, like, we're not accepting fault. We're not blaming ourselves. We're not accepting fault. We're just saying
yeah,
we
we had bad
should have
information,
done.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's just, it's
yeah.
pathetic. I think and I don't know if you've ever, do you follow Sean Ryan at all?
I do not, no.
Okay. So, and I don't really follow him all that much. I've watched a couple of his episodes. I know a little bit about him. But there was a time when he came out and said something, and it's interesting because I was actually going to say something regarding this as well, when Pam Bondi had allegedly said, if we prosecute all the names in the Epstein files, the entire system will collapse. Okay. That was what she was alleged to have said. And I was like, that's really, like, stupid. I don't, and I started to get a little bit angry and fired up about it. And I thought, wait, let me make sure she actually said that, because I hadn't seen any source documents um, regarding her saying that. All I had seen was like people putting quotes, on a video or whatever. And I was like, I don't know that she said that. And I looked it up, and they're like, no, she did not say that. She said something along those lines, but she did not use those words. And the words
Yeah,
that she said were not as bad as what they were saying she had said. So, um, Sean Ryan made a post or something saying that she had said that, and he was really upset about it. And then a couple days later, he came out and goes, "Guys, I messed up. I need to eat a big bowl of eat some crow here because I screwed up." And I said that she'd said this, and it pissed me off, and I was angry, and I reacted out of anger, and I posted this video, and he's like, and I was wrong. He's like, she did not say that. I was wrong. I should not have posted that. I've retracted it. I've taken it down. So it was, and that's not the first time he's done that. There's actually another time that he did the same thing where he had said something, and then a couple weeks later, when he got further information, he came back and retracted it and said, "I apologize. I made a mistake."
Yeah.
And it was really impressive to me that somebody with that much of a following, I mean, because he's huge, and for him to be able to stand there and humbly say, "I messed up. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'm a human being. I made a mistake. I will do better next time." And that was really impressive to me, is that he was able to do that.
Yeah, and honestly, this is my running joke whenever I have these conversations is I've got a chapter on that in the Sane Read.
Yeah.
Is I mean, just for him to come out and I obviously don't know the whole scenario because there's just so much news to go through, but it is sounding familiar. Is that the public correction is something that should be annotated. And so I encourage people that are really focused in on the news of even keeping a log of the people that you're following, kind of a self audit, and I call it the Sane Read Media Trust Ledger. Is just like kind of if there's a story that really kind of gets your blood boiling, write it down, write the news source, and then come back to it a couple of weeks later. And is that information even still accurate anymore? Like, did the commentator or the news source give a real correction, or was it just hidden? Did they just delete their comment initially? And kind of how they go from there. But another chapter, I actually had just looked it up, was just to remind myself the exact number, was like chapter 10 was the source test, and you'd mentioned it also, where you had gone and looked at the White House documents of, what was being offered as information, and using that as your source. One of the things that really gets under my skin, where people are arguing of what really happened, or where you're getting this information, and it's tough. But when I'm reading a news source and they're like, and the example I like to use is the email said, and you're like, okay, well, where's the email? And I'll read through it, and they'll link to another article, and that article be like, the email said, and I'm thinking, okay, well, where's the email? So now I'm in my third separation of the source, and it'll give me like a snippet of like 2 sentences of what the email said, maybe.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, where'd they get that? And where's the email? And then maybe if you're lucky, you go and you get an actual real viable source of, hey, this is kind of the email in its entirety. Videos are the same way, is a video showing, but when they don't show the video, I mean, that should automatically throw up red flags for anybody looking to feel, is this accurate? And so if they don't show a video, automatic red flags, and then try to follow the source. And then if the source, whatever 1, 2, 3, 4 articles later finally shows it to you, and it's only like 10 seconds, well, what's 30 seconds in either direction? What's the full video context show? I can't tell you how many times, and as I was going through this, like, oh, that really upset me. And then I go find the video and I watch a couple minutes around it, or I watch the full video and I'm like, nah, that was maliciously kind of edited. Or it just further proved the point. And then I'm like, okay. So having those kind of defenses, I think for us, kind of, and those guardrails so that we don't immediately just get upset about it, I think can really kind of help our day-to-day, mental well-being. Going back to the gentleman that was upset at your the video that you put out there for the down pilot, like that gentleman, and obviously I don't know his story, I don't know the situation, but I'm gonna use it in kind of broad terms, is he felt passionate about something that he was going to verbally, I don't want to use the word accost, but basically, that's what it sounded like.
No, that's really what it was. I mean, the way he came in, it was like he came in ready to fight.
Right. And
And
so
it was a
he
message, thankfully. So I mean, it wasn't necessarily out in
right.
the public eye. So I mean, give him credit for that. He sent a message instead of just putting a comment. But he definitely came in hot. And
Right. And if he's coming in, and if he's that emotional about it, I mean, good. I mean, not good in that it's a good thing, but like that should be a sign like, okay, if I'm ready to send this message to somebody and I'm that emotionally responsive to this situation, is that's an opportunity to kind of self-reflect and go, okay, well maybe I need to like dial it back a little bit, and maybe the Sane Read has tools that could help kind of just parse through and take a real check on our own personal emotions before
yes.
jumping into that type of behavior, because there's people in the streets throwing hands. Real violence is happening, political or for social issues that are happening in the streets right now, and that it seems that, like I said, 2015 is a lot different than 2025 and 2026.
Yeah.
I don't love the trend that I'm seeing. And I think that for those that are very passionate about the issues that are deep on their hearts, if you want real change, going aggressive is normally not a good way to go about it. And so finding ways to be able to communicate that was really the heart of the book, of how do we have those conversations and how do we first self-regulate our own response, put again guardrails to be able to receive information accurately and be able to kind of have those little like, hey, if they're not showing me the email but they're talking about it, then that's a red flag. And then how
Yeah.
do we then the final step kind of goes into how do we bring that to conversation to start talking about subjects that are passionate about us, so that we could really impact change by having discourse and discussions with other individuals. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of that goal that I'm trying
Yeah.
to help facilitate.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I've been trying to get, make a little bit of change in the veteran community is we need to stop just reacting and saying whatever the first thing that comes to our minds is. I understand that that's kind of a military thing. That's like it's left over from the military, is just being very vocal, being very aggressive, and
Yeah.
there's a time and a place for that. But I think when you're just having a conversation with somebody, a lot can be established and a lot more can be done if you actually put aside your emotion for a little bit and just have a calm, controlled conversation. Because again, like I can't tell you the number of times I've had that same conversation with somebody where they'll send me a message and they're just, I mean, they're fired up. Like I had a guy, I posted a video of it was a Russian guy that had dug a trench in his own front yard, and he was like hiding in his trench because he just couldn't recover from, the trauma of coming back from the front line in Ukraine. And yes, he's Russian. And I understand that. Like according to the video, I can't promise he was. I'm just saying that
Sure.
this was, the video that I had put out there. And it was not necessarily even like, look at how bad Russia has it. It was look at the trauma the war has caused in this
Oh yeah.
man's mind. And so this guy sent me a message and he was like, I mean, he came in like, he's like, F you, like, I hope your family gets droned by Russians. The Russians are evil and I hate you for this. And, and I was like, literally kind of went in like this. I was like, hold on. Like, but I was literally like, just hold on a second. Can we talk? Like, can we just talk about this for a second?
Yeah.
The reason I posted the video was to show the trauma of war, and and then to highlight the fact that he's probably not going to get any help because he's Russian, right? And in Russia, they probably, I don't know what they have for mental health or for, like any help for these people that need it. It's probably not very good, whatever it is. Um, but I mean, he was angry, and I think he was from Finland. He was not American. I think he was from Finland.
Oh,
And he
okay.
was like, we have a deep animosity towards Russians. He's like, they hate us, we hate them, they hate Americans. And I'm like, okay. I try to look at us as human beings, not necessarily Americans, Russians, or Finnish people. Um, I would like to look at the humanity of this. And anyway, by the end of the conversation, we were like having a very cordial, very respectful conversation. And he was like, hey, I hope you have, I'm sorry for what I said, you know, keep doing what you're doing. And I was like, hey, and I understand, like, And I gave in, to his position as well. I was like, I understand that you guys hate Russians. You guys have a deep history, bad history with Russia. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that Russians are good people. Well, and then at one point he said that everybody that joined the Russian military was volunteering to go to the front line in Ukraine. And I was like, have you served in Ukraine? And he's like, well, no. Have you? I'm like, no, I haven't. So I can't say that everybody who's there volunteered. I have seen and heard that a lot of people are being pressed into service. They're being literally arrested and like taken to the front lines. And I've read stories and I've heard accounts of these things happening. And my calm tone, rather than responding defensively, my calm tone of responding conversationally and being like, hey, can we try to find a common ground here? And when we found that common ground, the whole conversation shifted to, you know, it was more of just like a, hey, like, I'm glad you shared your input. And he's like, I'm glad you shared your input as well. And we became like friends through this. So there's a lot to be said for responding graciously when someone comes in aggressively. And I've had people do that with me as well, where I've gone into a situation like hot and mad, and then they'll respond calmly. And I'm like, yeah, I think I responded a little bit too aggressively there. And I'll take a step back. And then by the end of it, we're talking normally and having a good conversation. But the veteran community as a whole is pretty vicious in their attacks on people. And it's a lot of, and I think that's the reason a lot of people are afraid to say anything regarding their mental health, is because they don't want to get made fun of. They don't want to get ostracized. And I know that that's not really, it doesn't really go into playing into like reading the news, but I think it plays a part in that, is just the notion that if you say something, you're going to get attacked.
Sure.
And I think that's just in general, like somebody comes out and they're like, I'm really struggling with my mental health, or I'm exhausted. And then people are like, oh, suck it up. And then they just start, they just drag them through the mud because they had the audacity to say they're tired. And it's like, give them a break. Like, have you never been exhausted and tired and hoped that you could have said something like, and asked for help? It's just,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that needs to be changed just in general.
Unfortunately, a lot of that I felt like, so security forces in the Air Force is not the most pleasant career field to the individuals that are in it. Just a, and I know other career fields around different services are also kind of rough to each other. And it's a lot of it has to do with the mission, right? Like, in the Air Force, as the joke is, there's only, you're either security forces with a gun or you're hiding underneath your computer desk, right? And so, so the mission is important, for those guys, but it was really like later in my military career, you get your leadership lessons, you learn what's good, what not to do, what's bad, and you try not to perpetuate kind of the wrongs that the leadership above did to you while you were an airman or new, and just kind of grow and develop in that aspect. But I'd say a lot of the things that I had kind of picked up was towards the end of my military career, and kind of as I was transitioning out, as I was kind of alternating my perspective and then getting ready to go on the civilian world, was that we're not always the best in listening. And I think that goes into our post-military existence of, like if you show any kind of weakness, people are jumping on you, kind of like what you're talking about. But I think we forget that everybody that came into the military, they came in there from somewhere. And I know while you're in, you're expected to just sort of be part of the collective of, you're part of the group, you're out on equal footing, to put it, kind of simply, and you're expected to kind of meet these expectations. But like a lot of these guys are coming into the military with trauma that they are trying to escape.
Bandit, quiet down. Grief, dog. Nobody tuned in to listen to you. I mean, they probably like you better than me anyway, but geez. So I don't know about you guys. I really love dogs. My dogs are their friends, their pets. But to some people, dogs can really make a huge difference, especially when you go through a company like Guardian Angel Medical Service Dogs. Guardian Angel Medical Service Dogs is a nonprofit dedicated to empowering veterans and first responders and other individuals with disabilities by providing highly trained service dogs that help people regain independence and improve their quality of life. These service dogs are trained to assist with all kinds of things from PTSD to traumatic brain injury to mobility challenges and seizure and diabetic disorders and even hearing impairments. So these dogs they just change people's lives. And if you are in need of a dog or you feel like you could use one, go to Guardian Angel Medical Service Dogs and click on the apply for a dog tab and just see if you're even a good fit for one. Also, if you want to donate to assist in the training and housing and feeding and supplying of these dogs, go to Guardian Angel Medical Service Dogs and go to the monthly Paw Prints Club. Your donation enables these critical mission operations such as veterinary care, housing, food, professional training, constant communication with the disabled individuals before, during, and after matching them with a service dog, and continued support throughout the service dog's life, including training and veterinary assistance long after they've received the dog. So if you guys want to make a difference in veterans' lives, this is a great way to know that your money is being used in that way, and your gift can make a life-changing impact. And remember, together, we can unleash the power to heal.
And they're getting put into the military, and young leaders. And I was, I struggled as a young leader too, as a junior NCO, I got my E5 stripe, staff sergeant stripe, I'd say pretty early. And I wasn't the best brand new staff sergeant, I can say. And you forget, like, these guys are trying to just escape, make a difference, whatever their purpose for being in the military is, and their background you may not have any idea about. And just to think that they had come in and they struggled, and now they're in the military, and now they're just getting, their just butt handed to them on a daily, and then which doesn't really facilitate, a good home family life, and then you've got the long hours and stuff like that. And I'm all for being proud professionals and out there, but that lack of just understanding that these individuals have their own needs and are coming from a place of vulnerability. I think if we could switch that perspective of like, okay, these individuals are here, they're in our charge, I should at least take the time to learn where they're coming from and kind of bring them from where they are to where they need to be versus where I think they should be to where they need to go. And when we get out, I think the veteran community kind of holds that mentality of like, well, we're a rough community. I mean, because we are, of you just need to suck it up, buttercup, and everybody's suck is different. You'd be like, oh, you only got mortared, you should have been shot at. Gosh, oh, you only got shot at. We didn't even have up armored Humvees when we were deployed. Oh, you only got shot at in up armored Humvees, you didn't even get blown up. Like, I mean, but still, I mean, if you were getting shot at, that was still, not the greatest time to be in, and if you never got blown up, yeah, I'm going off on tangent here, but essentially I think that it's,
you're absolutely right.
We're beating each other up for no reason, not realizing that everybody's going through their own struggle. And just because your experience was different, doesn't mean that, we need to kind of be rough on those around us. And I think,
well, and everybody, they try to wear their trauma as like a badge of honor. Like, well, I had it way worse than you did. And I did this and I saw this and I saw that. And I saw my friend get his face blown clean off, and it's like,
right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry that you had to see that. That's not a good thing or something to be proud of. Like, that's terrible. And it's just I think I really like the title of your book, just the Sane Read. And I mean, the Bible talks about being sober minded. And just having, and that has nothing to do with sobriety or anything. What it means is just having a mind that is controlled, and it's self-control, and being able to control your emotions, both ways, not getting super sad and not getting super angry and not getting super happy, and just being out of control. It's being controlled and being in control of yourself and having that self-control to be able to just rein in those emotions. Because again, being a leader in the military is hard. You got people from all walks of life coming in and trying to work together. And you have these leaders that, again, are just Joe Schmo who got promoted to this position, and they have to learn on the fly how to lead other human beings. And these other human beings may not want to be led, or they want to be led and they're just not very good at following, or they're just leeches and you have to do everything for them because they have no, they have no, you know, I can't even think of the word right now. They're not able to do anything on their own. They don't have any
There's no
initiative.
drive or initiative. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have any initiative. And so it's hard to, so, people complain about having bad leaders, and it's like, okay, but if you haven't been in that position, you may want to take a step back and think, how would you have been in that spot? Because it's easy to sit there and say, well, I would have never done that. Like, you don't necessarily know that. Maybe you wouldn't have done
wait
that,
till you're
but
there.
you probably could have done something else that would have been not good either. So I like the idea behind the premise behind your book of just approaching things cautiously and with the idea of, I don't know everything and I don't have all the answers. And my emotions are liable to be activated just like anybody else. And being able to control those emotions and control those immediate reactions, like just the immediate, like, oh, I want to just reach out there and slap somebody because I read this headline. Like, that is where a lot of growth happens, is to be able to sit there and say, that headline is pretty out there, pretty outrageous sounding. There's probably more to that story. I actually said this to my wife last night. She said there was a guy who, and I don't know, there was a comment on one of the videos. He got blown up and he got a Purple Heart for receiving it was either blast injury or shrapnel to his face. And he said in his comment, I got a Purple Heart for getting blown up, getting blasted in the face by an IED. And then when I went to the VA, they said that the complications weren't service connected. And that's all it said. And my wife was like, that's ridiculous. And I was like, it sounds ridiculous, but I promise you there's more to that story. Because if you get blown up, right? That's clearly service connected. And what I think is, and I was like, what it sounds like he said was the complications associated with that were not service connected. So he may be claiming something like, I have stomach problems now. And they're like, that's not connected. And again, I don't know the story. I'm just saying,
right. Yeah.
What he wrote was, similar to a headline. It's clickbait. It's, they denied me my disability and I have a Purple Heart, so I should be able to get disability for anything and everything. And it's like, no, that's not necessarily connected, but it's just that emotional pull of those, clickbait and headlines and taglines and things like that it's really strong. And being able to resist that is a really key sign of maturity, I think.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And the Sane Read, I appreciate your thoughts on it, because that was what I was trying to get across, was if we can just, and in chapter 1, I look at, the headline essentially kind of in that aspect of taking the information that you're getting right off the jump and is it kind of like this comment? Does it paint the full picture, or kind of where are we going with it? So specifically in chapter 1, I use the example of, I think it's, I just had it on top. I'm going to, like a weather report, is the example I like to use, is there'll be a headline that says, it's going to rain this weekend and it's going to ruin the town fair. And I'm thinking, okay, that's a simple headline. We see them all over the place, but really the only fact in that headline is it's going to rain, or it rained, or, depending on how it's written, right? And then the ruin is, the statement of ruining the town fair would be obviously that individual's opinion, and the perception or perspective is broken into, is they're focusing on the town fair, where, but when I look out here in the ranchers in rural Wyoming, if it's going to rain this weekend, they're elated that their fields and their prairie are going to get some much needed rain, and it's going to be able to feed their cattle, and so, it's the same thing that's going to occur, but the fact is the same, but the opinion and the perspective are different. And if we can parse through the headlines or even like the comments that you pointed out and say, okay, well, let me go ahead and just break this down and then immediately take away the emotion of it. Like, oh man, the VA is going to deny all this guy's stuff from his Purple Heart. And I hope the best for this individual, obviously.
I do too. Yeah. It's just,
But we don't
there's
know
more to the story. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think before jumping into a headline or jumping into a comment, thinking, okay, let me go and dial this back. And that was one of the things I'd learned from, I was out in the missile field. I was the flight chief out there, and I had about 100 airmen underneath me. And what would happen would be is, and I like to call this, they were talking airmen, is I would get a complaint, be like, oh man, this staff sergeant, he just started yelling and screaming at me and told me I was all kinds of this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking, okay, well then I go talk to him. He's like, well, I was yelling and screaming at him because he had his gun accidentally pointed at somebody and he really shouldn't have been doing that. Like, okay.
He's lucky that all I did was yell at him and I didn't put my foot in his
Right.
face, but
and right. And we're dealing with, we machine gun grenade launchers. I love the Mark 19. I mean, we're out there with all kinds of arsenals. We got a small army. And so, and I'm thinking, okay, that talking airman, like he's telling me a fact. Yep. That staff sergeant was yelling at him and he got cursed at and his feelings got to hurt. But what was the story? Well, and that's kind of, some of those life lessons that kind of came in and I think really kind of helped me parse through, some of the things of how do we even decipher this and how do we do it? Just knowing right off the jump of like, I need to take a beat and say, what's the other information involved? And ideally kind of help with that. And so, kind of in the direction of the book. And so like, there's the main book. And what I've noticed is that there's, if you were, in my perspective, if you were to read just the first chapter, is kind of the way I go with it, is that's kind of that, what is like the fact, the opinion, and the perspective. If you were just to read that first chapter, you would already be better off, is kind of what I tell people. If you read the first 5 chapters, which kind of goes and breaks down a little bit more of kind of tactics, I think that your news diet is already kind of better suited to be a calmer, saner read. And you're going off into the world of being able to just kind of have those defenses up so that the shock headlines, you're kind of inoculated and kind of protected a little bit from it. And the way I wrote it was, everything beyond that helped kind of develop and deepen your thinking of the different nuances around the media or the sources that it might touch. And then how in the end kind of focuses towards like, what can we do to kind of move forward and have that calmer existence and practices. Now, there's a lot of ideas that I put in there that I couldn't fit in the main book. And so I talk about an idea and it ultimately comes into like a little check sheet or workbook or whatever. And so from that, I had created the companion workbook, which I think I sent you a copy of that as well.
Yep.
And so that's for individuals that want to read the book, but also then want to try to put a little bit more into action. Now, the book, after every chapter, has like discussion questions. Like my wife loves the book clubs. And so people that want to have like a discussion group to talk about politics, talk about social issues, the questions in the back of each chapter kind of go that route. And then the companion workbook was designed to do that. Now, I actually created then for the individuals that are going and want to do more and want to put this into their day-to-day, I created then the third book is the 365 days of sane reading. It's a journal, and it has in there kind of that the news media trust ledger where you can go in and start documenting, all right, I'm following this news source or this influencer or whatever. This story has really kind of got my blood boiling, or I think it's really important. I'm going to write it down. Because going back to the story of I'd hear something and 6 months later it'd be different, I was never going to be able to track down that news story. It wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I've created the journal for those people that really want to that are very passionate about different topics and news sources, and that they kind of keep that written down and kind of journal it through. Um, because I think if people are willing to throw hands in the streets or cuss out a stranger online or ruin family relationships, the least they could do is take a moment, um, and say, is the information I'm getting accurate? And am I receiving it properly? And that was really the
Yeah.
heart of this is how do I help? How do they help? And so, um, yeah, that's the series as a whole. And honestly, I'm really hoping that I believe, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I believe the midterm elections coming up are going to be just fraught with extreme political ads that have gone to a level that we've not seen before.
Yeah.
And it worries me that it's people are going to be even more divisive during the midterm elections and leading up to and after, and then further the 2028 presidential election. I think is just going to be something that is it concerns me after watching from 2015 to 2025, 2026. It concerns me as I look forward. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put this little slice of peace out there into the world, and in hopes that, families can communicate during these what I perceive as potentially chaotic times that are coming up. You know, like I said, we've got people protesting. We've got violence out in the streets and stuff like that, and we need to kind of curb it before it gets to that extreme level. And so, uh, if you're okay with my pitch, for the audience here, like, honestly, if you've got that in-law, or you've got that uncle, or you yourself are like super passionate about just the news, like, go to Amazon now, type in the Sane Read, and order the Sane Read, a news media field guide, and either send it to them, say, hey, I heard this will help. It's nonpartisan. It kind of meets both sides in the middle. It kind of helps people kind of work through kind of calm settings. And I think it'll help you. It'll help them or help you kind of as we go into these kind of tumultuous times. Or if you're, say, like my wife, that really just wants to know what's true or how to find the truth and is tired of getting blown around, um, in the chaos of talks with coworkers or talks with on social media or the news. This is also designed for individuals that are just trying to kind of parse through the noise and to kind of build some defenses. And so, again, go to Amazon, order the Sane Read. It's a it I think it's a pretty quick turnaround in regards to how they send it out. And so I think it could really make a difference. I'm hoping it'll make a difference in your family's life. And if that's the case, let me know. I've got a website, thesaneread.com. And so that's kind of the kind of quick gist of where you can get your copy of the journal here.
Yeah. No, it's really good. I was really excited when I started reading it, and I was getting, again, because I've just been it's very timely, very timely. And I think that's my life verse is James 1:19, and it says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And I have been horrible at that throughout the early years of my life when I was younger. And I have for years had that on my wall, and I've got it highlighted in my Bible, and I've got it on my phone. And I mean, it's just always in front of me because I am not quick to listen. I don't like to listen to the whole story. I get very angry very quickly, and I like to just say what's on my mind. So for me, it is an intentional everyday thing to squash that and say, shut your mouth, listen to what's really being said. Because sometimes it's not the words coming out of their mouths. Sometimes it's what's behind those words that's causing the anger and the frustration. And there's a lot to it. And you may not be able to get all that information, but me
Yeah.
reacting and shouting and yelling or getting angry is only going to make it worse. And
Yeah.
that's, and especially with now that I have a little bit of a following and people, value what I say, I have to be even more careful. And it's just, God is I could see him up there smiling, and he's like, he's kind of laughing, and he's like, "You better figure this out." This is like, it's like, I told you this was going to be important. And I'm like, I know, but I didn't realize it was going to be this important. And he's like, well, you better be able to listen and not get mad. I'm like,
He's got big
"Eh."
plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm trying. And he's like, yeah, well, keep working.
Yeah.
We're
I
not
mean,
there
and I
yet,
think,
but we're getting
yeah.
there. But it's,
Well, and I think that
it's,
scripture is important for all of us, and you're not alone in just
yeah,
needing to kind of that slow to speak. I mean, um, I'm a redhead, I'm a ginger, and it's a problem.
yep.
But I mean,
But
I tried. I mean,
yeah, it's a military, and the guys and men and women that join the military are generally more type A personalities, where they're aggressive, they're ready to, there's not a whole lot of flight in the people that, are in this community, and it's just a lot of fight. They're ready to fight, and a lot of it is, people get defensive and they get offended, and not necessarily offended, like, it's just they get defensive of their ideals and their beliefs. And when they feel those are being attacked, they react rather than respond. And I get it. I mean, we're taught to react with overwhelming violence. Whenever something bad is coming your way, it's like, well, we're going to destroy it. So that is a reaction that is ingrained in us since day one in boot camp. And that's okay. There's a time and a place for that. But that time and place isn't the Walmart parking lot when someone bumps into you, or you're
yeah,
you're at a family dinner and someone says, they don't agree with X, Y, and Z, or they love this. And it's like, we don't need to try and kill each other over, the Thanksgiving
yeah,
turkey because we don't agree on something. Like, it's silly, and it's tearing our country apart. Um, these polarizing ideas, and basically there's like, if you're on this side, you cannot agree with the people on this side on anything, or if you're on
sure,
this side, you have to hate these people. And it's like, no, we don't. No, you don't. You can disagree and still get along. You can disagree and not hate each other. Now, are there times that there's certain things that you're not going to be able to find middle ground on? Yeah. But does that
sure,
mean you have to hate that person, or like, maybe it means you need to separate yourself from them because you're never going to get along and you're never going to be able to have a civil discussion? That's called boundaries. Like, hey, we can be friends. We're just not going to talk about this. Like, can we just agree on that? Like, we just don't need to broach this subject. Okay, cool.
yeah.
Like,
And I actually put that in there as like, you know what, as a tactic of having those hard conversations. Like, I value our relationship more than this topic, and I think it's probably a good idea that let's take a beat, like let's take a break and let's step back because you are more important to me than this scandal that's going on that has nothing to do with any of us. You know, and yeah, I mean, I in front of every book I'd put a different verse in there, and I put it there as also a reminder to me is they all focus towards um leaning towards God for wisdom. And so I'm not I'm a man of faith. I'm a Christian. I'm proud of my belief and my path and walk with Christ. Um, and so I'm not ashamed to have that in there and just say, hey, for me, I lean towards praying for wisdom and help me get through it. And the book, it takes, because I address my own personal bias in there. And then the book itself kind of goes through kind of the non-biased, partisan, one way or the other, kind of looking towards, how do we decipher the news? But for me, it's important that we do seek out wisdom. We do seek out ways to communicate without, blowing up relationships and stuff like that. And I've had that happen, and it's been unfortunate. I've had instances where just at you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden, within like 50 seconds, there's it's escalated through the roof, and I'm thinking, I don't
yeah,
even know how this got there. Um
yeah.
and
It doesn't take
in
long to create a rift and burn
oh
burn
no.
a relationship, and
Yeah,
it's,
and that's not something that and especially with your veterans, because honestly, for me, when I got out of the military, when I retired, it was harder than I ever would have expected. And I had a support network. I had veterans around me. I have a wonderful wife. I've got a great son. I've got a great sister-in-law and brother-in-law and support network here. And nevertheless, it was tough. And for
Yeah.
us to kind of not help people through their struggles, especially when it's something silly like certain social issues or political issues. I mean, there's certain political issues that I'd say are very important to my heart. There's other things that people argue about that that I've seen ruin relationships that have nothing to do with a person's day to day. And it's sad to see, some of our veterans out there that might be struggling to have then this argument or this blow up kind of just sort of further exasperate their struggle.
Yeah.
And those are the things that we're definitely trying to working towards,
So
kind of helping
regarding
people through.
your transition out of the military, I know you did, 20 years and you were kind of moved all over the place. It sounds like you lived in several different places, including overseas.
Yeah.
Um, what was the hardest part transitioning for you?
It was really, and I've heard it described for other people similar to this, and so it's kind of probably in this vein was it was a different speed, and the organizations that I might have been working for and supported kind of had a different mindset. Like they're almost working against the organization's needs, and so for us, I felt like it was ingrained with, like you said, we got to react with decisiveness and aggression, and not necessarily like negative aggression, but like
Hmm.
with intent. Um, and so I remember there was a time where something big was going down, and and I had my role, and I tried to remind myself, and I had a little mantra. I was like, I'm not Mr. Master Sergeant. I'm I'm just Dave. Whatever X role is. But the boss was out, and something big was going down, and I jumped right into, not like I'm a senior NCO or a prior senior or retired senior NCO. This is the route we need to take. It was just like, okay, we need to make decisions, and we need to address the situation, and we need to fix it. And all my civilian coworkers were looking at me like, "You've lost your mind." I'm thinking, no, this is a big deal. This could cost people's potentially their lives or their health or the foundation of this organization. Like, this is not a small thing. And they just kind of looked at me like, really? I don't know. And so I was like, that's fine. I'll just do stuff. And I started doing things, and that reaction rubbed the staff a certain kind of way, to the point where even the main boss, when she'd returned, she's just like, no, that was wrong. And I'm thinking, I'm working towards the betterment of the unit, right?
Yeah.
Which obviously it wasn't a unit, it was an organization. And I'm like, okay, well then, it's shut up, stay in your lane, and kind of move forward. And I'm thinking, okay, well, these people are not working towards the betterment of the people they're serving or the organization. And,
Yeah.
their feelings are more important than the objective, which, I mean, as we just said, I mean, their feelings are important, but like there's also, a mission that needs to be accomplished, and we need to kind of balance those two. And so that was kind of a weird kind of situation that kind of highlighted to me, like, okay, I'm certainly not dealing with security forces, um, where we're just going to go out and make things happen. Um, and I had time to kind of wind down from my flight chief days towards retirement, because the moment you even think retirement, um, they're like, oh, we're going to put you in a corner now. You're dead to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I had time to kind of like, kind of process through some things, and kind of help in other manners, because then they were kind of, okay, well, we're gonna put all of our efforts into the individuals that are kind of staying longer, which is, I understand that as well. And so I had at least kind of scaled down the speed of things. But that kind of, and you hear it, kind of that loss of mission, even being in an environment that just wasn't really focused. And so, I hung up the uniform in 2019. So it's been almost not quite 7 years, but 7 years. And, we've kind of found my footing. And like I said, my wife, she's amazing. My son's great. He's actually getting ready to graduate college this year. And I've got local family around here that are really kind of the things that I think people should lean on if they have it. And
Yeah.
if they don't, kind of talking more to the community is finding those outlets of community, because I think that's what the military brought to you. And for me, it's my church. I know it's hard to find a good church for people, and so don't give up. Pray for wisdom, pray for guidance, um, and if you found a church but you don't feel connected, find a Bible study or a small group if they offer it, because I can about guarantee you there's veterans around you, and veterans that have leaned on their faith to kind of help them through it. And so that's kind of some of the things that kind of helped me push through. Writing the book. Honestly, I like helping people. That's the whole reason I joined the military to begin with. And the book is kind of focused entirely on that direction of how do I take the struggles that I've faced, and I think a lot of us have faced, with the last decade, and how do we move forward with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's one thing that I try and tell people is finding a purpose outside the military. And when you find that, things start to fall into place. And it took me a while, because again, it's like I had a family, I have a family, and I had a family when I got out, and I had my faith. And you know, my wife used to ask me all the time, why isn't that enough for you? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it should be, but it wasn't for me to, enough to just have my family and support my family. And that sounds terrible. It's like I just, I should be satisfied and content with, serving my family and providing for them. But it wasn't fulfilling me enough, and I finally was able to, when I started helping people and pouring myself into helping other people, is when I started to feel, okay, now I have this that I can do. And it's not necessarily, again, it's not a job. It's not
That's
like there's not a, helping people is not a career, right? I mean, it can be, but it takes a different form. But that, like, my mission in life is to serve God wherever he puts me by helping as many people as I can. And that doesn't matter. I can be doing anything at this point, you know, as long as I'm doing what God wants me to do and I'm helping people and I'm serving other people. That's where I get, my fulfillment, and I'm serving my family at the same time, but I'm able to pour myself into helping people. And that is when I started really finding purpose and fulfillment and identity again in serving God and serving others. And that's the biggest thing for me and I try to tell people, they're like, I just don't know what to do. And I'm like, who are you helping right now?
right. What's your
And they're
mission?
like, yeah, what's your, and like, why I'm a, I'm an accountant. Okay, that's not what I asked. Like, that's your job. That's how you make money to feed
Yeah.
yourself and provide for your existence and your subsistence, right? Who are you helping? Well, I help people at work. You kind of do, but they pay you. Who are you helping in a way that when they can't help you, like when there's nothing in it for you, who are you going out of your way to help and to serve? And then that kind of starts them thinking, well, I like, working with kids. Okay, like, so find a way that you're able to pour into some kids in the community, because we know that there's too many kids out here that don't have good role models, and they're getting, abandoned by their parents because their parents are hooked on drugs and everything else.
Yeah.
So there's kids that you can help. And it's just, it's once you start getting people to stop looking at themselves, like, how can I feel fulfilled? It's like, okay, so the way you feel fulfilled is by helping other people feel fulfilled and help them in their life and make it through this crap journey that we call life, because it's hard. But when you're able to help somebody along the way, that's really intrinsically powerful
Yeah.
in you. And it's like, there may be no benefit for you outside of just that feeling of, I was able to help them. God used me to help that person. And if that's all you get out of it, that's enough.
Oh, yeah.
If you're doing it for a monetary or some kind of gain, it's not gonna work, because that's not actually serving people. That's, you know, getting paid for your work. And again, that's
Yeah.
that's where the difference is. And so I think it's really neat that you say, when you started writing the book in an effort to help people, that's when things started to kind of fall into place. And that's one of the things that I try, and whenever someone sends me a message like, I just don't know what to do, I'm like, you've got to find somebody to help. You have
Yeah.
to find a way to serve. And until then, you're probably going to flounder. and it's not easy to find that. I say it's not easy, but when you find it, it's almost like, why didn't I think of this? Like, I knew this all along. Why didn't I think of this before? And
Sure.
it's funny because you're like, I just don't know what to do. And then you find it and you're like, yeah, I knew that all along. I just didn't, for some reason, didn't make the connection. So it's funny to me when you finally land on it and everybody else around you is like, yeah, we knew that about you. Like, you didn't know that? And like, well, you could have told me.
Right. Yeah. Where were you when I was really needing this
Yeah.
information? It's like, oh, well, I'd already told you that like 10 times. You just weren't listening.
Right.
Oh,
And they
well,
probably did. And I was
yeah,
just
right. Yeah.
stubborn and not paying attention. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's the truth. I mean, I feel you there. Cause I mean, and I heard about it, like, okay, the separation's hard. And I was like, okay, sure. But we've been here for a long time. We kind of had some ideas. We put it, we were really putting our faith in Christ of like, okay, he's going to have a plan for us. Cause we kind of left with not a whole lot of plan. I just knew they were going to move us.
Yeah.
And,
Sounds
my
like
son
when I
had
got out,
like,
it was
we had already
like,
said, we're staying here.
yeah.
And so we're like, okay, well, we're going to figure this out. Um, and it was a challenge. And I've got a good friend of mine. He's in the kind of the similar boat. Like he's been in the military, and he's kind of out and he's trying to figure his way. And I'm like, I'm like, hey, I'm here to help. I mean, just being there and being supportive of those individuals, I think helped me through it. And that's where I'm trying to be, for my old, military mates and friends and family and that are getting out. And one of the things is I had I had written the book, but in the process of writing the book, I had also created the publishing company to go with it. And so then, and the whole intent of that, I've dubbed it Rare Manner Publishing. It was to support, and my initial idea was to support authors that just were like, I don't even know if I'll ever be able to publish a book. It just seems so insurmountable of just kind of being that bridge of being like, no, if you got an idea, I want to be there to be able to help individuals. And so, um, and it's still something that we're kind of growing and developing, but that was why it was created, was to kind of help individuals. And I've got 2 authors currently that are kind of working towards, getting their manuscript right and getting proper and finding that path and hopefully finding the same release that I did with creating it and kind of building that bridge out there. And so, I put it out there. I haven't actually publicly advertised any of this. And so this is kind of on the whim and kind of being led, but
Yeah.
we'll see what turns of it. But if anybody is like, man, I would love to write a book and I'd love to get it published, I'm willing to help. I'm willing to help. And so if you are interested, go to the Sane Read, thesaneread.com, and go to the comments and just say, hey, I don't even think there's a section for it. Cause like I said, this is kind of more on the fly, and just send me a comment. It's like, hey, I'd like to publish a book and I want to learn more. Or you can email me at contact@thesaneread.com. And then if I can be of service, I'm happy to see if I can support, and just kind of put that out there for people, and then kind of go from there, because it's made a huge difference for me just to get it out on paper. It's been great to be able to open dialogues and just start talking about, to stuff, because you start talking politics. I like talking politics and social issues with people because I think to me, it's interesting. It's intellectual. It's kind of, I like hearing other people's ideas and kind of thoughts, and it kind of challenges my own ideas. Um, and and then when people are like, oh, you should talk about this, be like, oh, well, conveniently, I've got a chapter of that in my book, because there's a lot of things
Yep.
that people start thinking about and be like, oh yeah, man, you should check out chapter 10, the source test, or maybe have you ever considered keeping a ledger? I mean, I got a chapter on that. And so there's just a lot of things that I think, hopefully it'll help somebody. And then again, if people are looking to, maybe find their muse, or they found their muse and they're just looking for an outlet, maybe I can help them out with getting it published for them. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize that was your publishing company. So that's really cool.
Um, I prayed for God to work in my life, and he kind of inspired me to do it that way. And, I've just been kind of slowly kind of working this out just because we've got a lot of things kind of going on. And so, but yeah, I mean, Rare Manner Publishing. It's something
Yeah,
that, we're
that's
trying to help
awesome.
people.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I think that's it's good that there's there's help out there for people that understand, and from people that understand, what it's like. And that's, no, I think that's really cool. I didn't know that was yours. That's really neat.
Yeah. So for you, if you would like to publish a book, I would be honored to be able to also then facilitate that as your journey of, further supporting veterans. And so,
Yeah, well, that'd be
um,
awesome. I need to. People have asked if I'm going to write a book, and I'd like to. I like writing, and I know that I would like to. So it's definitely something that I need to look into some more. So we'll probably
sure.
be able to chat some more offline about
Yeah.
that. So because that's definitely something I want to do. But I think it would be really neat, because I think, like I've told people before, everybody has a story.
Yeah.
Everybody has, everybody has something to say. And when I get people talking about their story, and later on they'll come to me and they'll say, that was really cool. Like, I didn't realize that, like, I had that much of a story to tell. And I'm like, I'm telling you, everybody has a story. You just got to be able to get it out there. And
Yeah.
everybody's like, well, I never did anything cool. I'm like, that's not true. You've done cool things. You've seen cool things. You've experienced cool things. And, and sometimes there's jerks in this world that don't want to listen because they're only focused on themselves. I want to listen and I want to read it. I love it. I
Yeah.
love, hearing people's stories. And honestly, even some of the mundane stuff is just, it's interesting because I like people. So it's just, I think more people need to be willing and able to write and to share their stories. And that's why I try and have people on the show, because they're like, well, and I have people all the time. I ask them, you want to come on the podcast? And they're like, talk about what? I'm like, talk about your life, like what you've done. And they're like, I haven't done anything. I'm like, that's a lie. Like,
Yeah.
you've lived, 20, 30 years on this earth. Some of these people, they've lived 60, 70 years, and they're like, well, I haven't done anything. I'm like, that's not even possible. Like,
Right.
the experiences you've had, it's amazing. Yeah. So I think it's really neat that there's, you're willing and able to help, people get their stories out there too. So that's really neat. So Rare Manor Publishing, and it's
Rare Manor Publishing.
the Sane Read, and I'm going to hold it up here for my camera to show it. The Sane Read, and then Rare Manor Publishing. So again, you guys will, the links will all be in the show notes, and I'll have all that in there. And I'm going to put this on my website. I have a recommended reading list, and I'm going to put that
Nice.
on there because, again, I think uh, it's really important. This whole concept of being able to, one, not freak out when you read a headline, two, vet the sources, and three, get all of the information and
Yeah.
actually read the source information for yourself, because there are so many people out there in the veteran community and otherwise that they get their information from a source that's, this much information, and they put out this much information, and it makes everybody angry, and they build their whole opinion off of this much information when the source document is, it's huge, and there's all this context that they're missing. And it's so frustrating to me that people just put out noise, just noise, noise, noise. And there's no real vetting of this information. And there's no real, like, hey, go look this up for yourself. It's, hey, trust me, I know what I'm doing because I read an article. Like, it's unbelievable. But
Yeah.
this is going to go on my website as recommended reading, definitely, because people need to be able to, one, read this, and two, develop their own process of being able to, like you said, just vet these sources. But having a book like this and having the field guide and the journal and everything else, it sets it up, because it feels overwhelming. It feels overwhelming to be able to, like, how do I do that? Like, well,
Right. Yeah.
there you go. Now you have a literal field guide and a book telling you exactly how to do it. So
Yeah. Well, hey,
we'll
I
put
really
all the
appreciate
links in
that. I
there,
mean,
but
that means a lot to
yeah,
me. I mean, and yeah, I mean, if I can further support, that's again, really just kind of the motivation behind all of this is just, my wife says if we can support one person with this, then it's worth it. And it's already been, worth it in, I mean, beyond our wildest expectations. And so, yeah, we really appreciate, just being able to be a vehicle for a better world, really. So
well, that's awesome. And I really appreciate having you on. I'm glad you came on. I'm glad we were able to finally make it happen. Um, yeah. Do you want to just go through, why don't you go through and just say where they can find you and your stuff one more time, just so they can hear it again?
yeah, no, absolutely. So first and foremost, if you're just looking to buy the book, go to Amazon, type in the Sane Read, it'll come right up. And so order the field guide. again on Amazon. And then if you want more information about it, it's thesaneread.com. And so it should show up right up in your Google search if you kind of, don't have it all perfectly right in your address bar. And then that has kind of ordering guides, a little bit more about the book and kind of where it can kind of support, across the different kind of avenues of it. I am on Facebook. You can look me up on David X Cook. And follow me, and I try to put stuff out there, just sort of day-to-day tips that kind of come up, news articles that seem a little bit wonky. I try to highlight and just kind of put those critical questions. Sometimes I like to add like, hey, I've got a chapter on that, and throw out the chapter number and kind of point people to the direction of where it might be able to help. And so I love to engage with you. Again, Facebook, David X Cook, and then Amazon, The Sane Read. I would really appreciate your support, and thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm really glad you came on, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. And I know we'll try and maybe have you come back on, and we can go through and maybe use your method to kind of go through some of the stuff, and then even just to talk about some of your other experiences you had while you were in the military. So I know you've got other stories that I'm sure would be cool to hear. You can't do 20 years in the military and not have some pretty crazy stories. So
Well, yeah, no, and I would love that. I mean, I would love to, yeah, without a doubt. And I have to look back on my 20 years and think that was crazy.
yeah.
And so
At the end of it, it's like, whoa.
right. So I would be honored. And so thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. And again, you guys can find him at thesaneread.com. You can find him on Facebook at David X Cook. Also, the book will be on my recommended reading on the website. But if you guys have any questions, if you need to try to figure out how to get a hold of him, you can shoot me an email and I'll put you in touch with him. But David, I really appreciated having you on, and I look forward to hearing from you again.
Awesome. Thanks. Me too. Have a good day.
You too.
Hey guys, quick reminder, if you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, go to whatever platform you listen to these podcasts on and leave a review. That's the best way to help us out. It gets a lot more traffic to us. So again, if you liked it, like, subscribe, and leave a review. All right, love you guys.